Hey, what's going on, guys? It's me again. Today we're going to be covering the book of Exodus. Everybody loved the cover I did on the book of Genesis, so here we are now, and we're going to do or cover the book of Exodus. So make sure to get comfortable, plop your headphones in, maybe play this in the background, because we are about to cover the book of Exodus. So the new Pharaoh of Egypt comes to the conclusion that there are too many Hebrews in Egypt, and he forgets that Joseph, the previous guy before him, actually, like his people, the Hebrews, actually contributed a lot to Egypt, and Joseph also did too. So the Pharaoh is like, man, there's too many Hebrews. If they keep, if there's too many of them, they might turn a war against us. And he also comes to the realization that a whole bunch of stuff needs to be built. And he's like, why not kill two birds with one stone? Let's enslave the Hebrews. And that way, they won't be able to turn against us, and we'll get a bunch of work done. So the men and the women, the Hebrews, they basically just become enslaved because the Pharaoh is like, yo, they might turn against us, so we finna enslave them. But since the Hebrews are like God's people, God has their back, and God is like, if they finna enslave y'all, I'm gonna bless y'all, so that way when y'all work, y'all are gonna become strong, and y'all are just gonna flourish. So even as they work brutally and hard, they're still growing stronger, and they're flourishing, even as slaves. And because of this, the Pharaoh is like, come here, everybody come here. So he calls two of his servants, and he's like, I want all the firstborns, when the women have children, I want all the firstborns that are boys, slaughter them, but keep the girls alive. And then the midwives are like, yo, this is against God. We're not doing that to Pharaoh. And Pharaoh, he gets her word of this, and he's like, yo, y'all are slaves. Y'all don't have a say in this. And then the Pharaoh is like, yo, all the firstborn children, all the firstborn boys are going to get thrown into the Nile River. Amram, a Hebrew who is also a slave, hurries back home because he's like, yo, what if they smoked my kid? PSA, it might get a little dark, but don't worry about it. So as Amram is going back to his house, he sees that his daughter Miriam is there, and he's like, oh, they must not have came yet. So he goes inside, and he finds his son, and they start weaving a basket, right? And the baby boy's mom takes him to the river, and floats him down it. And Miriam is keeping an eye on the basket as it's going. And sooner or later, the boat keeps going down, and then a princess sees the basket, gets curious, picks up the basket just to see what's inside, and she sees a baby. They see the basket, and then they open it, pick it up, and they see that it's a baby. And Miriam comes out because she had been watching the baby boy go down the river, and she goes up to the princess, and she's like, do you want me to find a nurse to take care of the Hebrew baby? And the princess is like, yeah. And so the princess kind of likes the baby, so she's like, we're naming him Moses, and we're going to send him back to his family, and if anyone has a problem with it, come tell me, and I'll tell them what's up. And then Moses lives in his own home for until he's 4 years old, and then they take him to the king's palace. And now Moses is like royalty. He grows up in the king's palace, and then comes to the realization that the way they treated the Hebrews was really bad, and he kind of gets disturbed by it. Moses does. One day, a Hebrew is getting whipped really badly, and Moses sees this, and he's like, stop, and he runs up on the guy, and Moses ends up smoking the guy. The next day, he sees two Hebrews fighting, and then he tries breaking it up, and then one of the guys is like, yo, who made you boss over us? And then he proceeds to go, yo, are you gonna smoke me the same way you smoked that Egyptian? And now Moses comes to the realization of what he's done. He's like, yo, people know I did this, so I'm just finna dip, I'm finna leave Egypt. And so Moses, he's tired, so he stops by a well, and a shepherd and a group of women are arguing with each other. The shepherd's like, yo, let me use the well. The women are like, yo, we got here first, we should be able to use the well. And then Moses steps in, he's like, yo, let them use the well. To the shepherd, he's like, yo, let the women use the well, it's only the civilized thing to do. And then the shepherd, he's cowardly, so he runs away, and then the women get their water, and then they go home to their dad, and they tell their dad yo, this guy just helped us get water. And then their dad is like, yo, and you didn't invite him to dinner, invite him to dinner. So she goes back to him, and she invites Moses to dinner. And then as Moses is having a dinner with the women's family, he's just like, having dinner with them, and their dad is like, yo, we actually need a shepherd. Will you be that shepherd? And Moses is like, bet, I'll be that shepherd. And Moses marries one of the daughters named Zipporah. I could be saying her name wrong. And so as time goes by, years go by, and Moses becomes a shepherd. He has 2 sons, and he's like, okay, I've, life's been good. Egypt, that was a whole thing, but now I'm free. And then as Moses is like wandering off, he sees that there's a fire on a bush. So a bush is on fire on a mountain called Mount Sinai, and Moses is like, yo, that bush is on fire, but it's not burning up. It's not burning, but it's on fire. And a voice speaks to Moses, and the voice goes, Moses. And he's like, yo, what is that? And then Moses is like, yo, who are you? And then the voice from the bush is going like, yo, take off your feet. This is holy ground you're stepping on. And Moses, he's like, oh, okay. So he takes off his shoes, and he's just barefoot in front of this burning bush. And then the voice proceeds to say, I am the God of your ancestors, Jacob, Isaac, Abraham, all those good dudes. And then Moses begins to like hide his face because he's scared. He's like, oh man, I can't believe you're actually God. I can't believe this. And then God proceeds to say, I have seen the oppression of my people in Egypt, and I'm going to send you there to go free them. And then Moses is like, yo, who am I to do something like that? And God is like, you're going to go, and you're going to go to Pharaoh, and you're going to tell him to free my people. And then and then Moses is like, who am I to talk to Pharaoh? And then he's not back talking God, but he's kind of like giving his piece on why he shouldn't do it. And then God kind of gets upset. He's like, who made man's mouth? The mute, the blind. Did not I? You will go. And Moses is like, oh, my bad. Okay, what do I call you? And God is like, I am that I am, symbolizing that God is everything. He is I am. And then God is like, yo, throw your staff on the ground. And Moses is like, oh, okay, because he had like a rod that he would guide the sheep with. He throws that on the ground, and then God engulfs it with his power, and the staff turns into a snake. And Moses just saw his staff turn into a snake. So he's like, nah, to heck with this. I'm dipping. So he's about to run, and then God stops him. He's like, yo, stop. Pick up the snake, pick it up. And Moses, he doesn't want to disobey God, so he picks it up, and the snake transforms back into a stick, back into a rod. And then Moses, realizing what he has to do, he goes up to God, and God tells him that Moses, that the Pharaoh won't listen to him, that the Pharaoh won't listen. So God is going to lift up his hand, and he's going to smite Egypt with all his wonders. So, cutscene, and God is now talking to Aaron. Aaron was praying, which Aaron is Moses's brother. So Aaron is praying, and God starts talking to him. God then tells Aaron, yo, Aaron, go meet up with your brother Moses in the wilderness. And Aaron is like, okay, bet, say less. And then Moses and Aaron meet up with each other, and then they come to and they're like so happy to see each other. Like, yo, Aaron, it's been so long. And then they go up to like a couple people, and they're like, yo, we're going to go to Egypt tomorrow, and we're going to tell Pharaoh to free God's people. And then Aaron and Moses pull up to Egypt, and they go to the Pharaoh, and they're like, yo, the God of everything is telling us to tell you to free God's people. And so the Pharaoh is like, so Moses goes up to the Pharaoh, and Moses is like, yo, free God's people. Pharaoh being Pharaoh, he's like, no, I'm not going to free God's people. And, I just like to mess with the slaves. Pharaoh is now making life way more harder for the Hebrews. And now the Hebrews are kind of giving Moses and Aaron crap. They're like, yo, because of you guys, our lives are like so much more harder. We hope God punishes you guys. And then they meet up with Pharaoh again, and they're like, Pharaoh, free God's people for the second time. And so Pharaoh being Pharaoh, he's like, no, I'm not freeing God's people. But they did this at a pool. So it's just the 3 of them, and Moses instructs Aaron to take his staff that God engulfed it with his power and strike the water. And Aaron's like, bet. So Aaron takes the rod, and he hits the water, and the water turns into blood. Also, I forgot to mention this before that happened. They basically have like a magic show off. So Aaron and Moses go up to Pharaoh, and they're like, yo, we're here to show you God's power. And Pharaoh's like, okay, yeah, whatever. And they turn the rod into a snake again. And then the Pharaoh's like, yo, my magicians can do that better. So they have basically a snake fight. Obviously, the rod engulfed with God's power, that snake, it won and it devours the other snake. And so, for the second time, Pharaoh did not free God's people. So God calls on the 7 plagues that happened in Egypt. This is the second one. So, but yeah, this is the second one. The first one was turning the water into blood. The second one was millions of frogs just start inhabiting Egypt and start messing everything up. And then, the slaves, the Hebrews are getting mad. They're getting mad at Moses and Aaron, and they're like, yo, what are you doing? Like, why are you doing this? You need to, like, stop it right now. And Moses and Aaron are like, yo, okay, bet. But if we do that, and Pharaoh does not free God's people, we will have no choice but to ask God to call on the next wonder. And, Pharaoh is, like, getting, like, really upset. So he tries bargaining with Moses. So he goes up to Moses and he's like, yo, let's figure out a deal. But Moses is true to himself and he's true to God. So he's like, no, you need to free God's people. This isn't a negotiation. I also got to mention this before, the thing I just talked about where Pharaoh is bargaining with Moses. They called on the next wonder, which is the wonder of gnats. So gnats start inhabiting Egypt. They start messing everything up. And then if the gnats weren't as bad, Pharaoh's not freeing God's people. So he calls on flies. So now the Egyptians can't eat their food. They can't do anything like that because the flies are eating their food. So the Pharaoh is like, yo, can you not worship your God here? And Moses is like, no. And then Pharaoh is like, okay, you can take your people, but he's lying. And so all the cattle are deceased now. All the cattle just start dropping dead. And then Moses and Aaron pull up to one of Pharaoh's what was it? Was it like his hearing? Okay, yeah, they pull up to Pharaoh's court, and Moses and Aaron are like, yo, and they take soot and they throw it in the air. Now the everybody in the court is like getting like oh my goodness, everybody in the court is getting like diseases and their boils all over their skin, and they just can't take it anymore. Their skin is covered with like sores and boils. But then Moses and Aaron go up to Pharaoh. They're like, free God's people now. And then Pharaoh, he's like, no, I'm not freeing your people. And then the hail from the sky just starts hitting everyone. And it's just like, hail, how it works. And they're like, yo, because of this hail, our crops are ruined. And then Moses goes up to Pharaoh and he's like, yo, free my people. Oh, yo. Sorry, I'm getting too passionate. Let me calm down for a second. So basically, Moses meets Pharaoh in the Goshen, if that's what it's called, and he's like staring him down like. And Pharaoh, he talks to Moses and he's like, yo, the Lord is right. We are wrong. Pray for us and you can take your people and you can go. He's lying. And Moses is like, yo, let my people go. When are you gonna humble yourself and just let my people go, bro? And now the Egyptians are like on Moses and Aaron's side. They're like, yo, we have taken too much of this abuse. Just let his people go. It's not worth it. And then, Pharaoh goes to Moses and he's like, fine, you can worship your God here. What do you all want to take? And then Moses is like, what do you mean? What are we going to take? We're taking all of it. Like, you're not keeping any of it. And then Pharaoh's like, no, just the men. You're not taking any of these people. And then Pharaoh is like, at this point, Pharaoh is like dragging it. He's not letting God's people go at all. So he hits them with oh my goodness, bro. So God hits them with another plague, which Egypt is now surrounded 3 days in total darkness. They cannot see anything. And only the Hebrews have, only the Hebrews have light. Also, I forgot to say this, but before the God made it to where it was dark for 3 days, he actually sent locusts. Yeah. And then the Pharaoh basically calls Moses and Aaron to like his like temple, and he's like, yo, okay, what do you want to take? I'll only let you take the men and the women and the children, nothing else. Oh wait, no, he only said to take the women and the children. The men had to stay, my bad. And then Moses and Aaron just straight up tell him, like, yo, we're like taking everything. We're not leaving anything with you. We're taking it all. And then, Pharaoh has had enough of Moses and Aaron. So he's like, yo, you know what? I've had enough of you guys. Get out before you die right here, right now. But Moses, he's thugging. He's thugging hard, bro. So he's like, yo, no, you're not, like, who do you think you are, bro? I'm not scared of you anymore, because Moses, he wasn't scared anymore. He was thugging. So Moses is like, yo, instead, here's what's going to happen. If you do not free my people, also God's people, you will you are going to feel grief like never before, because the God I worship is going to send the angel of death to wipe out all the firstborns. Okay, listen, he didn't actually mention the angels of death. I'm just getting hyped. That's all. But he did mention every firstborn dying. Bro, I'm not even kidding. Moses is so hard for saying that. I'm about to read to you what he said. This is just from the type of thing I'm reading, okay? He said, I quote, "Tonight every firstborn son in Egypt will die, including yours. O Pharaoh, you will know grief worse than any Egypt has ever experienced. And then you will come to me on your hands and knees, and you will beg for my people to leave." Oh, that's hard! And then Moses basically goes to the Hebrews, the slaves, and he instructs them, yo, put lamb's blood on each of your doors. That way, when the angel of death is cruising through Egypt, he'll just pass by you, because he'll see that your door, he shouldn't touch you. Basically, they had to put lamb's blood all over the door so that for the angel of death to know to not touch them and to move along. So basically, the angel of death, yes, that's right, the angel of death, pulls up and he's smoking all the firstborns. And then it happens. Pharaoh's son gets smoked. And then Pharaoh calls Moses and Aaron to his temple, and he's like, yo, I've had enough. Take everything, take all your people, and leave. And at night, a pillar of fire leads them, right? So the pillar of fire, I think it's telling them where to go. Yeah, it's telling them, it's like leading them. And then they didn't forget this, but they also took their ancestor Joseph, the one in Genesis. They basically take the body or like the remains of Joseph, and they take it with them. And then Pharaoh just straight up pulls a switch. He's like, you know what? Nah, they're my slaves. So he pulls up and he starts planning, and they start going after Moses, Aaron, and the entirety of the Hebrews. And then they're like camped out, and they see that the Pharaoh and his army are pulling up on them, and Moses is like, dang, this is not good. And then the Hebrews start chatting crap to Moses. They're like, yo, what are we supposed to do now? Moses grabs his staff, walks out to the water, takes one good look at Aaron, and then one good look at the staff, looks up and says, he didn't say anything, but watch this. He split the sea. So the water parts, and they're able to walk through the water. And then as they're going through the river, or the sea, as they're going through the sea, the Egyptians are like right on their tail. So God, being cool, he makes it into he makes it to where fire and cloud, and he blocks them so they can't get to him. So there's just like this fire tornado thingy pillar, and it's like blocking them. And by the time Moses and all of them cross to the other side, God stops the pillar of fire, and all the Egyptians just start running through the sea, and then God closes it, and they all drown to death. Okay, so we're back in the house. This story continues. So they're like celebrating, and they're like, yo, this is actually so cool. We're free from slavery. This is such a good day. And then the complaining begins. So as they're leaving, they're like 3 days after that, they start complaining. They're like, Moses, we don't have any water. They find water, but it's bitter. And when they go to drink it, it just kind of sucks. And then the Israelites start complaining to Moses, and Moses is like, bet, let me go ask God. Moses prays to God, and Moses is like, yo, can you help us out? And God is like, yes, pick up that branch and throw it into the water. And then they taste the water, and it tastes amazing. They're like, Moses is like, they're drinking the water, and he's like, yes, and know the power of God. And then the Israelites start complaining again, and they're like, yo, you brought us out of Egypt just to starve here in the wilderness. This sucks. And some of them are like, yo, Egypt had like food, like at least we're starving out here. And then Moses is like, yo, quit your nagging and quit your bickering and quit your complaining. Ask God and God will help you. And so Moses puts out his hand and he starts talking from God's perspective. So he's like, you guys will have meat and you guys will have bread at dawn, and you will be filled and you will know that I am Lord. And then, what am I thinking of? Birds start falling from the sky and they start eating them and they start praising God, and it's awesome. And then the next day, manna starts falling from the sky and the Israelites go up to it and they're like, yo, what is this? It looks like frost. And then Moses pulls up and he's like, yo, that's manna. You can use that to make bread. And then they're like, oh, bet. But Moses is like, yo, only take what you need though, because yeah. And they're like, oh, okay. But then they didn't acknowledge what Moses had to say, and they store some manna in like a basket, and then they put it up and they're like, yo, we're gonna have to eat something. He has no idea what he's talking about. The next day the manna is rotten and they can't eat it. And then shortly after that, Moses tells his wife and his two sons, yo, go on ahead, just go ahead and go home. And they're like, bet. And then some people they pull up and they want to start something with Moses and his camp. Actually, yeah. Moses told his family, his wife and his two sons, to go visit their old home. And then the Israelites see that, these people are pulling up and they're about to go to war with them. Not like an actual war, war as they want to hurt them. And they want to pillage everything they have. So Moses looks at his homie Joshua, his most faithful aide, and he's like, yo, go get our best soldiers. We finna box them, for real. So Moses tells Joshua to go get his strongest, best soldiers so they can fend off these people. And, as they're fending off these people, Moses puts his arms up like this and he's holding his staff. And as long as his arms are up, the Israelites start winning. And as he puts his arms down, the Israelites start losing. And, Moses is trying his best to hold his arms up, but slowly but surely, he starts to get tired and he can't really hold them up anymore. So, what's his name? So Aaron and Hur, he's a dude from the camp, had to hold his arms up so that the Israelites would beat them. And then after that, they win and they start praising God. And then Moses builds an altar to God and gives a prayer of thanksgiving. And then after that whole thing happens, one of Moses' servants comes up to him and he's like, yo, Jethro, one of your relatives, is taking himself and some of other people and they're going to come see you. Jethro, he was a relative to Moses. He was his father-in-law, but he was like, yo, Jethro and some other of your relatives are coming to see you. And then, Moses and Jethro and his relatives, they're just having a family reunion and they're just so happy to see each other. And then, Jethro, which is Moses' father-in-law, comes to the realization that he was there for a full day and everybody was complaining to Moses. They were just bickering and they were just doing nothing but complaining. So Jethro, when he's alone with Moses, he goes up to Moses and he's like, yo, you can't be the judge of all these people all the time. And I'll tell you what, how about you go tell other people the way of the Lord, teach them the way of the Lord, and when you're not here, they can help you out. They can teach them, so they could teach them the way of the Lord when Moses isn't around. So Moses takes his father-in-law's advice and he gets a few people and he teaches them the way of the Lord. And after that, he does this. He tells the people that he was teaching, yo, be prepared on the third day. God is going to come down in the sight of all these people. And then on the third day, on Mount Sinai. It was Sinai. So on Mount Sinai, God is his presence, and then there's clouds and then thunder and you can hear a trumpet. And it's just so cool. I'm not even kidding. And then God gives us something that we have till this day. And those things are called the 10 Commandments, which I'm going to read to you right now, okay? So, the first one is, I am the Lord your God. You will worship no other gods. Number 2, you must not make you must not make any idols. That's the second one. The third one is, you must not use the name of the Lord your God wrongly. That's the third one. The fourth one is remember Sabbath day and keep it holy. So that's the Sabbath day is the day that God rested when he got done creating everything. And the fifth one is respect your mother and father. The sixth one is you must not murder. The seventh one is you must not cheat on your husband or wife. The eighth one is you must not steal. The ninth one is you must not lie. And the 10th and final one is you must not be jealous of other people's possessions. Which those are that's the dumbed down version of the 10 Commandments. Like the last one, for example, instead of saying what I just said, it was going to be don't convey other people's stuff, but a lot of people don't really know what convey means. So I dumbed down the 10 Commandments in a way you guys would understand. Also, I'm not calling you guys dumb or anything. That's just a saying, dumb it down. It means just to make something sound easier. Sorry, back to the story. So, Moses is up with God, and he's given laws, and he's just given laws, and he's just up there for a good minute, and Aaron and the rest of the Israelites are like, when is Moses coming down? And they're like, man, we want to worship a God we can see. So they make a golden calf, and they start worshiping the God. Not the God, they start worshiping the false golden calf, because they had made it out of gold. And then Moses comes back down, and he sees that they are worshiping something, and he has the 10 Commandments in his hand. He breaks them in fury, and he's like, man, what are y'all doing? The same God that God brought you guys out of here, you're betraying him by worshiping this false idol. And then Moses goes up to Aaron, and he's like, Aaron, who did this? And he's just like, no, it's not my fault. They just gave me all their gold. I threw it in the fire, and out came that. And he's like, well, then throw it back in the fire. Moses then melts up the gold, throws it in the river. He throws it in the river, and tells the Israelites, drink from the water. They taste it, and it tastes disgusting. They hate it, but that was their punishment for worshiping a false idol. Well, like, not like false idol. Yeah, like false. Basically, they weren't supposed to be worshiping the idol, because you should never worship idols, but yeah. And then, Moses has like a loving heart. So he goes back up to Mount Sinai, and he starts begging God not to destroy the Israelites. So he's like, Lord, I know they don't deserve it, but please just show them mercy. And God's like, he's not having it. He's like, yo, I'm going to destroy them. And then, thankfully, Moses is able to convince God not to destroy the Israelites. And then after Moses got done talking with God, he goes back down from Mount Sinai, and he starts talking to the Israelites. The Israelites see him, and God is so holy to the point where when Moses was talking to him, Moses' face was like shining like bright. Moses' face was shining bright like the sun, because he came in the glory of he came in the contact of the glory of God. And then Moses is holding out his hand like this, and he's like, don't be afraid. This is just, and he had to like wear a veil over his face just so they wouldn't be frightened. He's like, the Lord has forgiven you. And then fast forward a little bit, and now Moses is standing in front of the Israelites, and he's like, yo, God just gave me these laws. Now we are going to build a tent house of worship. And that tent house of worship was the tabernacle. I think I might put an overlay right here so you guys could like see, so you guys know what it looks like. And now the Israelites have their own laws. They have their own judges. They're just a one people. They're not slaves anymore. They have their own tent house of worship. And now they're free because God set them free. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the entire book of Exodus. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you got educated from this video. I would like to take the time to say I'm sorry for the constant switch ups in the video. I started down here, then I went to my car, and then I came out back here. And yeah, I just want to go ahead and say I'm sorry. Yeah, but I just want to go ahead and thank you guys. You guys really loved me covering the book of Genesis, so I thought, why not better to, pay you guys back by covering the book of Exodus. Also, I am going to be covering the entire Bible if you guys want me to. So if you guys want to see Numbers, Leviticus, and Deuteronomy, please take the time to like, comment, and subscribe, because these videos take really long to make, and it would make my day, and it would make my heart if you guys would just do that. Yeah, I thank you. I love you, and God bless.